Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Nancy, I think we're not hearing you.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Oh,
There you
I'm the
are.
one who's mute. Okay, so let me start that again. So thank you for joining us on the OWASP DevSlop show. If you're new here, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and enable your notifications. All pertinent information that we'll share and discuss today will be added to the description box below. And today, I was saying, my co-hosts are Nikki Becker and Pierre-Nic Durette. Hello.
Hey.
So Pierre-Nic was a guest last year, I think, on GitHub Actions. You came to talk to us about that. Can you tell us?
Like a year ago.
A year ago. Can you give us a little intro?
Yeah. So I've been doing DevOpsy things for, I guess, the past decade. So cloud DevOps, security. That's what I do.
Awesome. Good enough. So, Nikki, do you want to introduce our guest for today?
Sure. Our guest today is YEVGENY Potts. YEVGENY is a software engineer, an ex-cybersecurity intelligence unit, and a 3X entrepreneur. He's also the author of CloudQuery, which is an open source tool that transforms cloud infrastructure into queryable SQL tables for easy monitoring, governance, compliance, and security. So welcome, YEVGENY.
Hi, thanks for the introduction.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome to be here. So, yeah.
Cool. So what do you got for us today?
Awesome. So yeah, in this workshop, what we will do is essentially it's an introduction workshop to cloud infrastructure security and compliance, and a good way to automate it with CloudQuery. So we also do an introduction to CloudQuery, how to install it, how to run it, some basic commands, some more advanced ones, and we'll discuss that.
Perfect. So should I share your screen now?
Sure. Awesome. Cool. So let's go. And of course, feel free to interrupt me if we have any questions. So a little bit about me. I'm the CEO of CloudQuery. Before that, I co-founded Fuzzy.dev, which was acquired by GitLab last year. Essentially, it's CI for fuzzing. And last 10 plus years, I was focused on cybersecurity. Last couple of years, focused on the DevSecOps space. Before that, served at the cybersecurity intelligence unit. So before I deep dive into CloudQuery, so why do we need another security tool, or why do we need security in the cloud? We have really a lot of products and tools. So maybe let's go through really designing a very small to-do app in AWS. To-do apps are kind of the hello world of the cloud. So we want to have a couple of basic requirements: sign up and login for new users and registered users, add, remove, updates, to-dos, obviously per user. So every user only sees his to-dos. So let's go. So we have our users, and we hire our first developer. So our first developers, he opens up an AWS cloud. AWS clouds comes with IAM, it's identity and access management service, comes with the root account. So we don't want the developer to use the root account. So we create a new role and an account for this developer. And we might enable MFA, and we also create an access key so the developer can access the AWS cloud account from the CLI or from AWS SDK. So now we have very basic setup of AWS IAM service, and we can start building our application. So we have our front-end app, and we need to host it somewhere and serve it to the users. So we host it on S3 bucket. Now we need to authenticate the users. So we use Amazon Cognito. We need the front-end app to talk to RESTful API, so we're using API gateway, and we need some business logic and CRUD logic, so we're using a Lambda. We need to start the to-dos, so we are using Amazon DynamoDB for this. We might want to put it in a VPC, and we might enable some logging for monitoring, security, debugging, so we use AWS CloudWatch. So that should work. And we might want also a staging environment because it's only production, so we need to duplicate all of this. Let's say our to-do app grows a little bit and we are adding our account executive who's talking to users. We might want another AWS account, which will be demo account. So now we have 3 accounts just for small to-do apps. And let's say like we are a startup or maybe a bigger company, which are not only doing a to-do app, pretty quickly, you can see that it becomes this. So like from security perspective, we don't want to be this person. And then we have the question, really how to keep everything organized and keeping the security posture of our cloud in order, right? So let's say we are an SRE or a DevOps or a security engineer, like medium-sized company, and our day job essentially is to make sure our cloud infrastructure is secure. So we need to ask ourselves the question, how to do one-time audit. So yeah, let's say we come to a new company or just we want to make sure, again, that everything is all right. After we do a one-time audit and we see, okay, all our cloud accounts are, they have the correct configuration, they have the correct posture. We did all that work. How do we enforce those policies continuously? Because we don't want to, do audits every week. Maybe we want to do it quarterly, maybe, or 1 in 6 months, and we want to make sure it's correct every day automatically, right? And like in this very simple example, we had only AWS account, but some companies have AWS and GCP. Some companies have AWS, GCP, and Azure. Maybe even if you're only using AWS, probably you're using Okta or Auth0, which is the same thing now. But you can use G Suite, right? And the G Suite is also like in some way might be connected to the AWS account, and you have like an HR SaaS application, and you want to make sure all those, like you want to have some kind of visibility and to make sure that all those SaaS applications and cloud infrastructure has correct configurations. So this is why we started CloudQuery. It's an open source project located at github.com/cloudquery/cloudquery. And before we dive in one sentence, it transforms your cloud infrastructure and SaaS apps to SQL or graph databases for security, compliance, that we will talk about them today, and possible various other use cases. So you can really think about it as a single pane of glass for your cloud infrastructure. We released it late December. We already have quite a good developer community, quite a few contributors. We have more than 1.2K stars. About the architecture, so it's written in Go, which I think is cool, and it's pluggable architecture. You can write your own providers. It's a bit even similar to Terraform architecture because we are based on the same kind of Go plugin library, which HashiCorp uses. So currently we maintain GCP, Azure, AWS, Kubernetes, and Okta providers. And if you're familiar with, so obviously, I guess almost everyone is familiar with Terraform. But if some of you are familiar also with OSQuery, which is a bit like CloudQuery, but for operating systems. It's an agent. CloudQuery is not an agent, it's all API based. So it's somewhere emerged between OSQuery and a Terraform, right? If Terraform provisions your resources, CloudQuery fetches them the other way around, and then you can ask questions with SQL, right? Like OSQuery. So I can continue to the live demo unless you have some questions.
Yeah,
No questions
I
from
actually
the... Go ahead.
I have a question. Yeah, so in the last, I guess, 4 months or since your release has gone live, how have you seen the community using this? Like, what is like the most, I guess, just from a use case perspective? I mean, it seems fairly obvious, but I'm just curious if you've were able to refine a little bit more on more specific use cases.
Yeah, sure. So there are so obviously I don't know like all the use cases, but I know like people that kind of shared them publicly, either via the issues or talk directly to me. So one is really kind of security and compliance classic issues. So creating rules with SQL to make sure like the company policies and the security policies are correct, right, in your cloud infrastructure. And the second use case, which is also popular, is more around kind of asset management and visibility. So you want to understand, and cost management. So let's say you want to understand where do you, like, if you have an account with 10,000 buckets that you don't know about it, right?
Right.
And you need to delete it. So yeah,
and one query can go across multiple cloud providers, right? So you could sort of ask the same type of thing and it will sort of go in all the directions that it knows how to go to in.
Yeah, exactly. You can query join across cloud providers and across any tables that you kind of fetched to your SQL database.
Cool. And I'm sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions. Is the SQL database is it local on your where you install it, or where does it keep that data?
Yeah, so it's so we currently support Postgres SQL. So you can in the live demo I'll just use a local Docker, but you can I saw developers use it like Spawn CloudQuery in like with Lambda and with RDS. So using RDS and AWS account. So yeah, you can use Postgres database that hosted anywhere you want, essentially.
Cool.
And I imagine that your cloud environment and your database need to be in sync. Is that how often?
Yeah.
Do you think that?
Yeah. So currently it's like you essentially schedule it. You can schedule it with a cron. So you just you can run it daily or whatever every time you need. We think about also improving it with kind of maybe staying in sync with CloudTrail events or other events, but currently it just fetches all the data, and you can use kind of a simple cron job or.
Is there a recommendation? Because I imagine if we're using it for detection, you would want it to be as exact an exact replica of your environment, right?
Yeah, I think for now, like people were using it, for example, fetching it daily, and it was good enough. So even having all the info daily, it's good enough, but not having all the info, all the data at all. So there is an improvement here that we can do, but so far it's a great improvement already.
Okay, once a day. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, we can let you start with your demo.
Yeah, let's see that.
Yeah,
let's
awesome.
see it.
Cool. 1 second. All right. So and also, so CloudQuery, as I said, located github.com/cloudquery/cloudquery, you have most of the documentation about CloudQuery in the README, and docs.cloudquery.io, just as a reference. So if you're on a Mac, you can install it with brew install cloudquery/tab/cloudquery. So I won't install it now, but because it's already installed. And you can also just, if you're using Linux or Windows, because we're using Go, it's pretty easy to cross-compile. So you can go ahead and go into GitHub releases. You have all the CloudQuery releases here for Mac, Linux, Windows, and all the previous versions. Okay, so CloudQuery has three main commands, which is gen, fetch, and query. You can see it in the help. So first, CloudQuery needs a config.yaml that describes what you want to fetch, like which resources, which cloud providers. So we have kind of a handy command which generates, you can generate AWS, Azure, like a default AWS, Azure, GCP config. So let's say we want to generate gen config AWS command. I'll move that just because it's fine-tuned to my AWS account already, but let's run this command. It generates, it generates an AWS config. If you're running it the first time, then 1 second. If you're running it in the first time, you can also build it from source, but if you're running it for the first time, it might take a bit of time because of its pluggable architecture. It downloads the appropriate plugin, right? Like all the plugins are obviously also open source, and you can find them at CloudQuery. So you can have like CQ provider, AWS provider, GCP, and so on. So yeah, let's see why it's might have a internet connection problem here, but okay, let's skip this one for a second. I'll come back to the gen config, but what the gen config does is it generates this YAML. Let's go 1 second. Let's go through the YAML, and in the meantime, I'll the demo gods might not be with me, so excuse me for a second.
Yeah, take your time. I guess we could chat. Pierre, have you ever used a tool like this?
I've not, but I really want to try it on like any account that I own. So I just want to, I can see how this can be so useful, even for like cost management and everything, right? I don't know. It looks really cool, especially for the multi-cloud thing. One query to query multi-clouds. That is pretty nice.
Yeah. I was a big fan of OS query. I mean, still am, and I feel like this is a sort of similar concept. So I'm pretty sold.
Yeah, it is very, very similar indeed. So we can go through. So gen config AWS generates like a default configuration. So we have the YAML. The YAML structure is the following. We have providers, and then we have for each provider, we can specify the version of the plugin. So in that case, we'll use the latest, but we can pin it to some specific version. And we have all the resources. So by default, we fetch all the resources that CloudQuery supports. And obviously, we add more as we grow the project. And we have something that I would say almost all of the engineers that use CloudQuery in production use this feature as well. It's accounts. So usually you have a lot of accounts in your organization. So you specify all the account. You use an account that can assume role to all of those organizations with some permissions, like read-only or auditor permission, and you specify it here. So CloudQuery goes ahead and fetches all the all the data concurrently from all of those accounts. And,
We've had a question from the chat. So
sure.
Emmanuel is asking, are there any similarities between SteamPipe and CloudQuery? I was not familiar with SteamPipe. I don't know if you were. I looked on the website. It does say it's open source. It says no DB, no database required. So I'm not sure. Are you familiar with SteamPipe? And is there any familiarity between that and OS and CloudQuery?
Yeah. Let's see. I also wasn't familiar with that. Yeah, got it. So I think it is, I guess, similar in some sense, but we do use a database. Yeah, so I understand now, like what SteamPipe does. It's also used. It uses a SQL or a similar language to SQL, but it doesn't really use a database because it converts it, as far as I understand, like really quickly from the site. So I might be wrong. It converts your query to like an API and it queries it directly. What we decided to do, we decided to fetch it like to a Postgres database, everything, and then you can kind of reuse all the standard tools. So it's a bit, I guess, different design decision. So you can reuse all the ecosystem, visualization, whatever, Tableau, QuickSight. You can put it on top of Postgres and use kind of the standard ecosystem. So this was our design decision.
Understood.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So once you have the generated config that you generated with GenConfig AWS, by the way, you also have all the example configurations in the repository, example AWS config, GCP config, and you also can find it in the documentation. You have the reference for all the providers that we maintain, right? So, but the GenConfig is just an easy way not to go from the CLI to the website and have better dev flow. So, yeah, so it's generated the config YAML. It looks like this. I'll use my pre-baked config. And what we'll do is we need to run fetch command, and then we need to specify the the Postgres database connection. So if you're running it locally, you probably will need to run something like this, Docker run and Postgres. Obviously, don't run it like in production, right?
It's a very secure password.
Yeah, but if you run it locally, I guess it's fine. So I have the Postgres running already, and so once we have it we can do CloudQuery fetch and minus dsend. Usually it takes like a few minutes, depending on your cloud accounts. We have developers running it on 100 or 200 accounts, so obviously it takes a bit more. I created just a demo kind of organizations with 2 accounts for this purpose, and so I won't be running it because it will really take a few minutes, but you will see essentially you will see all the output in the std out, and you can also have all the logs in JSON format, CloudQuery log, that you can pipe to whatever centralized logging system if you are running it as a Lambda or somewhere in the cloud. So once we run the fetch, what CloudQuery will do is just fetch all the information for in this particular case from AWS. So let's go and look at the database. So as I said, this is kind of standard Postgres database. You can see all the tables here, and you can see them also in schema.cloudquery.io. We use the schema spy, which is, if you're familiar with SQL, it's a pretty standard tool to generate it. So you can look for whatever S3 tables, S3 buckets. You can see all the columns that we have, all the related tables, right? Go ahead, look at them, and you can see the same thing here, but in schema.cloudquery, you can see it in a bit more visual way. So let's say we want to get all AWS S3 buckets. We have the autocomplete here because we are using the standard Postgres shell. So we have 2 buckets in 2 different accounts. So as I said, I created kind of a demo organization with 2 accounts underneath. And so this is a very simple query. Let's say if we have hundreds of accounts, we can run something more interesting. Like, I want to know like how much buckets I have for each account, right? And maybe order by like descending. So I want to know count, and I want to know the account ID. Let's say group by account ID, right? So we have a like very simple table, and order by descending. Though I think it's the default order by order count by task.
Okay, so we have in the chat Carhugo Market saying, so one simple CLI command generates and populates a graph or document database with all the resources that you have in the specified cloud. Would that summarize what you just did earlier?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fetch, CloudQuery fetch, and minus dsend fetches all the data from either your AWS account or GCP account or both. I'll show you in a second. I'll show how to fetch the data from multiple cloud infrastructures.
Okay, I think that's a question. Go ahead, Nikki.
Yeah, there's another question that I think is actually pretty interesting. So like this has 3 bucket, right? CQ demo bucket 1. Let's just say that something had changed to it, had changed on it like today, and you just reran that data. Would there be an updated row where it's like you could see like how things drift, or is it just like writes over that row and it just is one thing?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I think this was one of the most requested features. So we're actually working on it. It's we call it a history feature. So you can also have like, you can ask questions and visualize things with history, like go back in time on particular resource and see how it changed.
Could you just create a new Postgres database every single time and then somehow?
Yeah, you can. I think you can do that, but probably it will be more efficient. I guess, like in the application level, we'll add some kind of metadata in the Postgres table, so we can go back in time. It will be kind of transparent, I guess, to the user.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that's really like a simple query to look at to look at as 3 buckets, and we can have a bit more complex queries. So let's say we want to ensure access keys are rotated every 90 days or less. So I have this query ready. So what we do, we select on AWS IAM users, and we join on AWS IAM user access keys because we need this information. And we check which of those access keys are rotated more than 3 months, right? Older than 3 months. So because it's a demo account I created just today for the purpose of the workshop, we won't have any. But usually, if you have a large AWS account, you will find quite a few. And so the first thing, I think it's nice that you can do, you can use the standard Postgres shell, but ultimately you want to have kind of pre-baked queries. Like it's a nice playground, but you want to have a pre-baked like list of queries that you run periodically or like automatically with a script. So this is why we created something that we call CloudQuery policy. CloudQuery policy is essentially just a list of those SQL queries that you prepared, right? So we have AWS. So we prepared a policy called AWS CIS. So probably most of you familiar with the CIS benchmark, which is kind of like a standard security and compliance, 120 pages of like manual steps or scripts that you need to run for every region or every account. And there are some tools on the internet also that automate it in some way, but we converted it into just list of SQL queries. So it looks like this. We have queries, and then you have just the name of the query or like what the query does, and then just the SQL queries. So CloudQuery will run all those queries. There are about 40 checks here in AWS CIS benchmark. And another neat thing that we can do is some queries requires quite a lot of joins. So you don't really want to have like a huge select statement in every query. So what you can do is you can create a view. It's a SQL feature. And then you can query on that view. So you can see that we have quite a few queries that are very simple because we are using already a view that we have. So CIS 3.1 check is we want to ensure that we have a log metric filter, an alarm for unauthorized operation access denied, and we want to have another check, similar check with console logins and MFA. So this is pretty easily done when you already have a view created for you. So this is in the views. You can do that in the views section. So now we can go ahead and use the query command for that. We need to pass it the same parameter, which is the Postgres database, and then we need to pass it the example AWS CIS. So because it's already in the Postgres database, it's cheap operation. So it returns pretty quickly. It doesn't really matter how many accounts you have. And you can see the problems that the checks, the problems that your policy discovered, right? That you don't have MFA on the root account. What's the account ID? What's the resource IN? And another important thing is that CloudQuery doesn't store any like real data or other like private keys in the database. Right? It just gets the metadata and the configuration to the Postgres SQL.
Cool. So a question in the chat.
Sure.
I think I understand this one correctly, and I was curious about it as well. So when you have like Kubernetes deployments or things that are, identifiable through the AWS CLI, as in I have an EKS cluster, I have EKS nodes, but to really drill into EKS itself, you need kubectl, right, to see what's going on in the cluster. Can this do things like that, or is that like, I guess, can CloudQuery start asking kubectl things? That might sound a little crazy.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely possible, and I don't think it's working out of the box yet, but we might do kind of a easy mode, but it actually should work already if you use our Kubernetes provider and provide it like the credentials of this EKS. We might do like this automatically, right? Get the creds from the AWS account and then query it down. But currently, what you will have to do is provide the credentials and then use the Kubernetes provider.
So in CloudQuery, there's a Kubernetes provider that you could also use to interrogate Kubernetes clusters.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's pretty cool.
Could you do like a view to put all Kubernetes from multi-clouds together? Is that how views could be used as well?
Yeah, definitely. And
nice.
For example, you can ask things. You can join tables. You can ask. You can create views on multi-cloud. And for example, let's spawn the Postgres shell once again. For example, I want to know all my how many buckets I have in GCP and AWS. So I can do that, right? I just select on GCP storage and AWS as 3 buckets.
Nice.
So what I'll need to do before that, I just fetched the information for AWS. I have the GCP data in Postgres because I ran it before. But what we need to do is we need to gen config GCP, and we need to pass it append because we don't want the config.yaml to be overwritten. And then our config.yaml will look like this. We will have the AWS, and we will have the GCP provider, kind of the same thing. We have the version, the name, and the resources that GCP supports. So here in GCP, the project and account management is a bit different. So you usually have a lot of projects and not a lot of accounts. So by default, it just fetches all the projects. And and then we just run fetch with -- dsn again, and it fetches all the data concurrently, from both providers. We're using Goroutines, so it's running in parallel. Cool. So yeah, so let's. I can go back to the slides.
Well, there was actually a good question here
sure, go ahead.
From Mehar. What type of permission IAM does it require?
Yeah. So currently it requires read-only permissions, and you can use actually like you don't have to give it like read-only permissions to everything. For example, if you have reasons not to, and you want also to give it read-only permissions for some resources, then CloudQuery will work. It won't fetch just all the data, which might be fine for your use case, right? So it will just fetch all the data that it has access to.
And a question we skipped earlier, I think Security Grid was asking, can it tell me what endpoints have public IPs?
Yeah, so what do you mean by endpoints? Is it like EC2 endpoints or API Kubernetes endpoints, or just what public IPs we have?
Who's still
or
around?
maybe things that are attached to an elastic IP or a load balancer.
Yeah, so you can build a query, essentially really the sky is the limit, I think, because you have all the data, so you can query everything. You can some data is available in EC2, I think, so you can have a query that give me all EC2s with public IPs, right?
And can you get into the security group itself? So rather than seeing Launch Wizard 1, can you talk to Launch Wizard 1?
What do you mean? Can you
can you get the data that's in Launch Wizard 1? I guess you are getting it, right? Port 22 is allowed on any. So that is all the data that's in that policy.
Yeah, so security group, we have security group, and security group has IP permissions.
Yep.
And it has IP ranges and IPv6 ranges. So you have all the data that you need to build a query like that.
Cool.
So if
you were looking for Security Grid's question, if you were looking to see any security group that had 000 rules allowed on any port, you could write a query that could sort of go through every single security group, figure out what they're attached to, and then figure out if they have 000s.
Yeah, so I think I might have a query, like an example query. It's part of the AWS. Okay, here it is. The internal security group allows ingress from whatever to port 22. So we need to join on essentially two tables, and we can create a view, right? So we don't need to join it all the time. And then the SQL statement should be really simple, because it will be just select from view where from port is bigger than 0 and less than 22, and the CEDAR IP is 000/0. Yeah. So we don't have this a bit of ugly part, I guess, on the query.
Cool.
Yeah. So I guess let's see if I have. Yeah, and maybe last thing that I skipped, but obviously, for CloudQuery to work, you need to authenticate it with the access keys. So for AWS, should be the standard authentication. You can use it via AWS configure or credentials files, and for GCP, it's also standard expert Google application credential environment variable, and for any other provider, kind of the same way. Cool. So what do you get? So you get the most powerful query language, SQL, to query your cloud infrastructure across clouds, across SaaS applications. You have open source framework, which is transparent, extensible, great dev community support. You can write policies with SQL and commit them to your repository, like to CloudQuery policies files. So you get security and compliance as code, if I can call it that way. And you can reuse the whole kind of SQL ecosystem to visualize your infrastructure, right? You can use Metabase, QuickSight, Tableau, and whatever you use in the in your account. And something that essentially CloudQuery came to replace is you don't need to maintain custom scripts, right, and code to run your checks, which was relatively popular in a lot of teams where I worked before. So you don't need to do that. And I think we talked a little bit about that before the show. Being open source really gives you the flexibility, right? So if we look at Terraform, which is cloud infrastructure as code, Terraform wouldn't be Terraform if it wasn't open source, right? Because it has to support a lot of integrations to really work well, and it has to be open source. So I think security should be, especially in the cloud infrastructure, and in a place where it's like DevOps first, SRE, security engineers use it. It also should be kind of open source first. So what's next on CloudQuery? We're working on adding support for more resources and more providers. We're working on more out-of-the-box policies. So you can reuse policies. You don't need to reinvent from day one and write complex queries. We're working on also remediation actions. So you can, for example, take actions on when something happens. So either it's an event or notification, though actually I think it can be achieved now as well. If you have, if you're deployed on Lambda, maybe you can configure notifications via some mechanism on the logs. But remediation action in terms of maybe you want to shut down an EC2 or do something more active. And we're working on a self-serve SaaS version. So it also should help us kind of, I guess, bring more more people to use CloudQuery and just make it easier, right? So you don't need to deploy it from day one. You might be able just to play with it, and if you want, you can then use the open source version and deploy it yourself after you are able to kind of.
Yeah, and I was thinking of a tool helping you create your SQL query, right? You might know what you want, but not be able to. Your SQL skills might not be on point to get what you want. And if a tool could help you with that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so I think we will have some pre-baked stuff in the SaaS version. It's really the idea to help to get to lower the barrier to entry. But even now, because we're using the standard SQL, you can use things that you're familiar with. If it's I tried Metabase, you can use things like Metabase, and they have kind of query builders, so you don't need to write the SQL if you don't want to. So it's more of a visual query builder. But there are a lot of tools like that on the web.
Even for visualizing your data, since it's SQL, it's been around for so long. There's so many tools out there that can really help you.
Yeah, for sure. You can create dashboards and any other sorts of analytics.
Here's a crazy question. Have you ever gotten CloudQuery to talk to SSM?
What do you mean?
Like, so in SSM, if you had SSM agents installed on your could you get talk to SSM to interrogate SSM for something that might exist on the EC2 instance? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Actually, so currently CloudQuery, like, it doesn't support SSM, but I think it's definitely like an interesting way to add more information. And I guess, so I didn't use SSM myself before that, but I think it will be, I guess, interesting to do kind of correlations, right, between data that SSM returns and like your other cloud infrastructure. I'll be actually interested to hear like how you use the SSM for, I guess, your use cases, because I'm less familiar with that.
Yeah, because then you can get context on the EC2 itself. So you could ask SSM, like, is some PID running? And then SSM will be able to tell you. Whereas I think the AWS CLI doesn't know that. So it's like one level deeper here.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I'm going to take a look at this after the show.
So you're
giving homework.
You're kind of bringing OS query into CloudQuery.
Yeah, exactly. It all comes like full circle.
Yeah. Which is pretty awesome, actually. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, or it talks to OS query, and like CloudQuery talks to OS query, and then
conception of queries.
Yeah.
So questions from the chat, maybe?
Sure.
Daniel is asking, is NIST 853 an out-of-the-box policy?
Not yet, but I mean, feel free to open an issue, and we'll try to drive in on it.
Feel
free to send me the PR.
Yeah. No, I mean, not the PR. Even an issue is really great, because I think one of the things with open source that you get feedback concurrently from a lot of people with a lot of use cases, and not one by one kind of one feedback in 6 months, right?
Yeah. I guess the follow-up question would be, do you have a lot of contributors? Are you looking for more?
Yeah, so we have quite a few contributors, but yeah, we're always happy to have more contributors. But even things like testing, the tool, right? Reporting bugs is super valuable, because it makes the tool more mature, more stable.
Yeah.
Nice.
And another question for Security Grit: any chance I can make an SBOM showing all software and version used?
I feel like this is close to what we were talking about.
Yeah, this sounds like SSM and OS query.
Yeah.
I guess unless it was Lambda stuff, right? If it's Lambda, you could probably get, I don't know, actually. Can you get a Lambda package.json file from a CLI? I'm not sure you can.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, not sure, but yeah, I think it really gets back to like what we talked, like going one level deeper. Yeah, we didn't try it, but if there will be clear use cases, and there will be a kind of clear path to implementation, that will understand how to do it elegantly, then yeah, we can add it. Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, so I think that's like, I guess last thing is so maybe like how I see the evolution. We have the evolution of infrastructure DevOps. So we had AWS, GCP, Azure DigitalOcean console. Then we got like custom-made scripts, right? Which was a bit better because we were able to automate stuff. We had version control, but still it was hard to maintain. And then we had things like Terraform and Kubernetes, right? YAMLs. So it's kind of easy to maintain. You don't need to write tasks things to test your code. It's easy to share best practices, right? People can share Terraform modules and Terraform files, and you have version control, so you kind of get the best of all worlds. So the evolution, it's really almost the same slide, but with security in the title. But the evolution of infrastructure security in DevOps is, like, I would say the same thing, but the last one is not Terraform, but CloudQuery, right? So you can have policies as code. People can share policies, right? Can share SQL queries, and like I would say this is the idea to have it as code in your repository, and replace writing code. So I guess that's it on my end.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, really cool.
So basically sharing a policy is just sharing a SQL query. I didn't think about that. Makes it so easy, and it's just text basically.
What are compliance teams going to do?
It's too easy.
Awesome.
Cool.
Maybe we can end with a roundtable. Nikki, how do you see yourself using the tool, and how what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think interrogating the cloud on a consistent daily, weekly, monthly, I guess that's a little too long, hourly basis is super valuable to any organization, right? I mean, developers are just throwing things up. Like, look at how complicated that diagram got just to do a to-do app, right? So,
yeah,
and going into the console is sometimes like overwhelming. I mean, this is a great way to sort of get the relevant data. Hey, one last question, actually. Can you pull tags from CloudQuery? Yeah,
of course. And so we pull tags from all resources that we support, and things that we are also working on is to have kind of more pre-baked views, so you can easily ask, like, select from all tags, right, and not just go like join on AWS EC2 tags, whatever, Lambda tags, so you can have like one view with all the tags, right?
Or find what doesn't have tags also.
Exactly.
That's a good one. Okay. What about you, Pierre? I'm leaving you the last words before.
Oh, wow. Well, I think that's for something that's less than 3 months old. This is very cool and impressive, and I would definitely use that. Especially, I especially love the fact that you can abstract many things together, like from multi-clouds, and just do the queries that you care about, because everyone's going to have something different they want to look at. And even though security compliance, but even so many other use cases like costs management, and there's so many use cases for this. So this is pretty cool tool, and I will find a use for it for sure. Yeah,
awesome.
I'm gonna use that. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, thanks for doing that. It's great.
Yes. And like I said early on in the show, we'll put your information, whatever you share with us and want to share with our audience, in the show notes. But do you have any, is there any requests you have for anybody watching that you would have anywhere we would follow you on the evolution of your project?
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter, YEVGENY Pots, follow us, star us on GitHub. I guess that's the easiest probably thing. Yeah, star us on GitHub. Try the tool. If you have hit any problems, find any bugs, or have any feature requests, fire up an issue. And other than that, I really enjoyed the show. So thank you, Nikki. Yeah, thanks, Pierre. Thanks, Nancy. It was
a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for the visit. Yes, and for showing us that. That's super powerful.
Thanks for your time. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Just before I close the show, I want to let you know that we'll be back next week with Rob Barnes from HashiCorp. We're going to talk about secret management, a developer's view. So make sure to follow us on social media. We're a bit everywhere. Twitter, LinkedIn, meetup.com is, I guess, the best way to know what we have coming up. So next week with Rob Barnes, Secret Management, and we'll be waiting for you guys. So have a great week.